We moved here to this present location in 2005, and closed on the house in March, the end of March of that year, and took possession of it, I want to say in May sometime, I don't remember exactly, and immediately went to work fixing it up, starting to convert the garage into bedrooms for my sons, and all that good stuff. And I was busy with work, contracting business, and we were going pretty good head of steam at the time, and continued on in that until about 2008, which was the best year that I ever had work-wise, and that was even with coasting on fumes the last 3 months of the year after the big crash. But anyways, that first winter that we were here, we're out in the country now, where we had lived in the city before, and before that we had lived in a different city, and before that it was housing flats. So this is the first time that I'd lived in the country, so to speak. But that winter, and this is the time when I used to sleep through the night pretty regularly, because frankly I wore myself out every day. So I had no problem sleeping through the night. But I woke up, I'm going to say it was 2 or 2:30 in the morning, maybe February of the following year, and was wide awake. And generally speaking, having lived in housing plat in the cities and working all the time, so when I got home I didn't spend any time outside. I'd eat dinner and go to bed, or just be inside for the night. I was wide awake, 2:30 in the morning, middle of winter, and decided I was going to go walk out and look up at the stars. So I had this, this is back when I was getting into hunting and everything like that. I had this poofy jacket with the real tree camo on it, and it was really, I still have it somewhere, but it's a really warm jacket. And I put that on, put a hat on, put on gloves, I think, and went out the front door, and walked out into the middle of our road, because it was 2:30 in the morning and there was no traffic, and I could. So I did. And I want to say it was a moonless night, and the stars were out. So I was standing there, looking up at the sky, and I turned, our road runs north and south, so I turned and looked south, and directly in line with our road, like directly in line with it, as our road was straight north-south, there were these 3 red lights in the sky. They weren't blinking. They were fairly widely dispersed, and they were kind of just a dull, deep red. But they were moving in my direction. They were moving from south to north. And when I say they were widely dispersed, they formed a triangle, but it wasn't like an isosceles triangle. It was more like the triangle you would see if you were looking at the tips of the wings and the tip of the nose of, say, like the B-2 bomber. It was that kind of triangle. but there was no discernible, I mean, other than the shape that was created by the three lights, there was no discernible form. You know, I couldn't see it. I mean, it was really dark, and I couldn't see it. But these lights were the two that would be, you would consider like the wing on the west side of the road and the wing on the east side of the road were really far apart. And of course, you know, the nose was proportionally forward of those two and centered. And as they moved, you know, I lived by Air Force bases and airports all my life, so I kind of know how things fly in formation. You know, there's subtle differences, you know, changes in the position relative to one another, and there was none of that. They moved like they were one object. But I couldn't see an object. I only could see the three dull red lights. And there was no noise. And it was coming towards me. And when I say coming towards me, I mean it was way the heck up there in the sky. And the reason why I say it was way the heck up there is because behind whatever this was, that what would be, if you could draw a line between the red light on the east and the red light on the west, probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the way towards the east light, there was the navigation lights of a very, when I say very small craft, I mean it looked kind of like what I've seen on, say, maybe an F-16 or a T-38 or something like a smaller jet, like right behind this three light configuration, running with it. You know, I say parallel to it, but running, going the same speed, so to speak. And this, I could see the navigation lights blinking. You know, the what is it, the red and green or whatever on the two sides. I could see them blinking, and because they were so close together, and they had the spotlights, you know, like planes have, that were on. That's what made me think this thing was really, really high up in the sky. And if it was, and if those three red lights were one craft, that craft was massive. And I've been to the Air Force Museum, and I've seen the B-2 that they have there, you know, inside. It's got the plywood skin on it, and, you know, was one of their test vehicles. And I've seen the size of that thing, and it's big. But this was orders of magnitude larger. In comparison to this follow-on, I'm going to call it a chase plane that was behind this thing, because I don't know what else it would be. But it was moving north, and you know, I understand about, you know, the delay that you get when something's really high up in the sky and like a jet goes over and you don't hear the sound for a long time, because it takes a long time for that sound waves to make it to the ground. Well, there was no sound with these three red lights, and honestly, that jet that was chasing it, it was so high up, I didn't hear it either. And these things passed directly overhead. Like I said, they were going from due south to due north. It passed directly overhead. And as they did, there was a star up in the sky. And I thought, okay, you know, because I'm looking at this thing and I'm not seeing a discernible body. I'm just seeing these three red lights that are moving as if they were connected. And there was a star that was going to come between, like, the red light that would be the nose of whatever this craft was, and the red light that was on the eastern side or wing, whatever you would attribute that light being attached to. And I thought, well, if this thing is black, this star should wink out. You know, it should leave my view. It should be obscured by whatever said craft, you know, in between these three red lights. The thing was, it didn't. It didn't waver. It didn't flicker. It stayed steady. The star was the star, whatever star it was. There was no change in its appearance as this configuration flew, I guess you could say, past or under or between the star and my line of sight. And it continued on, this three light configuration, and this chase plane continued on until they were basically out of sight to the north. And that was that. Like I said, there was no sound. Nobody visited. There was no alteration of their course. There was simply the only activity was the entire assemblage went from south to north, and the navigation lights on the chase plane were blinking. And that was my experience. And I like to use the term fast forward, but if you fast forward to maybe a year or so ago, I don't remember exactly how long, and that was, like I said, that was probably, would have been maybe 2006, maybe. But you fast forward to a year or two or three ago, I ran across a website, and it was the MUFON, where you report your otherworldly experiences. And I was surprised to see that they were based out of Cincinnati, and we live about an hour and a half north of Cincinnati. And I thought, I'm going to go ahead and fill out a report, a MUFON report. And I did, and I wrote down, all the information on the different, application, or however you do that stuff. I filled it all out and basically gave it the same information that I just talked about here. And a report number was generated. I've never heard from them. Probably won't. But all I could do was, in hindsight, was speculate. I mean, I looked online because previously I had seen stuff on the internet where they talked about, three lights in the sky and stuff like that, but they always drew the triangle that they were at, like an isosceles triangle, and this was not that. It wasn't that at all. It was quite different. Like I said, the configuration was more in keeping with like a B2, but if that was a B2, that was the biggest B2 I ever saw. But like I said, there was no sound and no obscuring of the lights. After, I had seen those articles, and then afterward, when I looked for them, when I did the searches for them, I really couldn't, nothing came up. And again, until you fast forward to where I found the MUFON site and I did the report, that's pretty much been that. I mean, I've not seen anything else like it. I have seen green-tailed meteorites falling, to the ground, or not, to the ground that I saw, but, I saw them flashing in the sky. We saw massive meteorite licking flames, big yellow licking flames come by us when we were making a trip to my parents' cabin back when my son was, maybe 3 years old. A remarkable thing. Looked like it landed we were on I-70, and it looked like it landed just to the east of it, but apparently it ended up impacting like in North Carolina or something like that. I mean, it was like almost on the coast where it impacted, but that was amazing. It didn't shoot by us, it flew by us rather rapidly, but not quite like, when you see a shooting star, which is just, a blip and it's gone. This thing had yellow licking flames, and the report on that one was that people saw it all the way from the Mississippi River to the East Coast, so, that wasn't the only one we saw, but that was certainly a meteorite. When I was much younger, maybe teenager, a friend of mine who's passed now, we're standing on a sidewalk on a bridge down in Holiday Valley when it used to only be one bridge, and we were, talking, shooting the breeze, and it was nighttime, and, it was kind of cloudy. Had those scallop clouds up in the sky. And we saw 3 white discs buzzing along in formation. And for a second, we were like, oh boy, there it is, and we were just spellbound. And then there was a break in the clouds, and we saw actually what it was the navigation lights, those spotlights, those white lights that the planes have, were shining down on the cloud layer, and the cloud layer was thin enough that the illuminated area was these 3 white areas, and I think maybe a lot of UFO sightings are just that. They're planes up above, and their lights casting that particular look. But those were very different in kind than the 3 lights in the sky that I saw that one winter night, standing in the middle of the road because I could. Anyways, that's my UFO story.